What's going on, people? This is DerekJ Speaks, and we are here to talk about WWE Monday Night RAW from March 31st, 2025, live from the O2 Arena in London, England, the final stop on WWE's 3-week-long international tour, filled with many less than stellar, uninteresting, very dull television shows. And this one featured, yet again, a face-to-face confrontation between John Cena and Cody Rhodes at the start of the show. A few weeks ago, they first met in Brussels. That's where Cena heeled on the crowd and played it up towards them. The next week, they pretty much did the exact same thing. And with those two shows and everything all encompassed, made me feel pretty lacking on the Cena heel turn so far. So I was hoping they could put on something great on this show, especially considering the fact that this is John Cena's last advertised appearance before WrestleMania. So at the start of the show, out comes Cena, and before he can even utter a word, Cody Rhodes interrupts him, and he comes out, and the two of them go face to face, and we finally get some form of a back and forth between these guys on the microphone. Cody started out trying to beat Cena to the punch and basically say, like, oh, everybody's talking about how Cena's gonna cook me. So he was serving up some shots to take at him, like, oh, I have a lisp. It's hard for me to pronounce words with an S sometimes. He mentioned Stardust. He mentioned his neck tattoo, and he talked about how he created a company that booed him out of it and all that kind of stuff. So Cody was giving him and serving him up some stuff to go at him with, but Cody also told Cena that he has spent the last 2 weeks lying to the people, because his reason being that he hates the fans and all this, and he's so against the fans, it's a lie, and that he deep down truly does love the fans. So he wanted Cena to come clean right here on this show to tell the world his real why. And then Cena gets the mic, and he does something that he has not done in these past several weeks of TV. He actually addressed Cody Rhodes, not the fans. He addressed Cody Rhodes directly. And he said he is not going to cook Cody Rhodes, but instead he is going to bury Cody Rhodes. Because he says that it's been talked about how Cena buries talent. And Cena refuted that by saying he does not bury talent, he is talent. What he does is bury mediocrity. And he talks about how Cody has manipulated his way to the top of WWE and how his ego outweighs his own ability. He thinks that Cody thinks just because he stole the blueprint on what it means to be a top guy, just because he stole the blueprint doesn't mean he can actually run the kingdom. He says the image, the sight of Cody Rhodes with the WWE title disgusts him, and that Cody was nothing more than Cena's chauffeur. Because a lot in recent weeks, Cody has talked about how he rode up and down with John Cena, rode in the car with him. They had this close bond for many years. So Cena called Cody nothing more than his own personal chauffeur. He said Cody is too perfect, he's too polished, he's too rehearsed, he's inauthentic. He called him basically underwhelming and unoriginal and lazy. He talked about how he's used a catchy tune just to trick people into loving mediocrity. He talked about the fans singing to him. And of course, these fans, these international fans, have been singing Cody Rhodes' name. They've done it with Roman. On this show, they did it with Io Sky. They did it with Dirty Dom and Dominic Mysterio in his match too. So he was pointing that out. He called Cody a sociopathic Nepo baby, which I thought was pretty funny. And basically how Cody is nothing more than a common fan, and at WrestleMania he's going to win the championship, retire with it, and no one will ever see it again. That was what he talked about the previous week on how he's going to ruin wrestling. He's going to win the title at WrestleMania. He's going to retire with it. And he's going to go down as the last real champion. And how Cody will be nothing more than an errand boy who got lucky. And very interesting note here is that after Cena was done, he got cheered. It was around the point where he was mentioning winning the championship at WrestleMania that he got cheered. The fans cheered him. Most of these fans in these crowds these last couple of weeks have been booing Cena pretty hard. And even on this show, there was a heavy mixed reaction for him. And Cody got a huge pop when he came out. But here in this promo, after Cena was done, he was cheered. Even more noteworthy is that once Cody picked up the mic and he began to speak and do his retort, the fans started booing Cody, which I thought was very interesting. And I thought it was going to go down an interesting path with this promo from Cody had he not actually delivered. But he did, and he won the fans back. So Cody basically responds to Cena here and says, "Who chose me?" Because that was also something that Cena says, that who chose Cody and like who decided someone like him should be in the spot that he's in. And Cody pointed out that the fans, the people, they're the ones who chose him. And that Cena was chosen by one man in an office who isn't here anymore and we don't talk about anymore. And that got a huge reaction from the fans, of course, mentioning Vince McMahon there. So that was funny. It's also funny and slightly hypocritical, seeing as how Cody, the man who basically brought Cody back to WWE, was Vince McMahon, who personally flew to his home in Atlanta to court him and, kind of sweet talk him to come back to the company. But it did work here with the Cena thing, because that is very true. For all those years, there was one man who heavily pushed Cena to the top. The reason that Cena was on top for as long as he was because of, well, the fans who kept buying his merch, but also because of one man who kept pushing him as hard as he did, and that's Vince McMahon. Of course, the man that we do not talk about anymore. But Cody also talked about how if there's anyone here who is a complete company creation, a manufactured product of the company, it's more so John Cena than himself. He talked about how everyone is so scared of Cena on the mic, and Cody said that he's not, because Cena has more dick in his promo than in his own jorts. He talked about how Cena spent many years creating disenfranchised fans who decided to pack up and follow Cody elsewhere, meaning all the people who flocked over and got into AEW at a time when WWE was at its lowest point. Of course, the letters AEW were never mentioned here, but we all know what was being talked about. And he told Cena to not pretend like he left the place for the better when he packed up and went off to Hollywood, because he didn't. And he also said that one thing that'll punch a giant hole through all of Cena's logic is that between the two of them standing there in the ring, only one of them actually sold their soul to The Rock, which another big point of this promo, because this was the first time The Rock's name has been mentioned in weeks, ever since it was The Rock and John Cena together, who, and of course Travis Scott, who attacked Cody Rhodes at Elimination Chamber. The Rock's name has not been uttered from the lips of Cody Rhodes once. So this was the first time Rock's name has been mentioned. I know people were, not many, but some, were getting their hopes up because they were seeing things and floating around rumors that, The Rock might appear on the show. He might be in London. And of course, Rock wasn't there. I never expected him to be there. If he's going to appear at any point in the build-up to WrestleMania, it's not going to be now. It'll be as we get closer. And even then, I doubt that. If we see The Rock again at all, it'll probably be at WrestleMania itself. But I digress. Cody said that John Cena is still his hero, but he's also a piece of shit. And so then Cena gets back on the mic and he talks about how no one has been worthy to step up to John Cena and put him down. He says even though he left for Hollywood, he never actually left, because he has put out the challenge to anyone to come out here, shut him up, and put him down in the ground, and no one has ever done it. And because of that, he's now doing it himself. Hence why he's retiring, because no one has been worthy enough to retire him for him. Cena talked about how no matter how high the hill he had to climb, no matter how much garbage was given to him, he always made it work, and he always made it great. Cena said that he has built empires for billionaires. Meanwhile, Cody has just stolen money from their kids, which was a good sick burn. Cena had a few good burns here. The Nepo baby one earlier, a few of the other ones, and this one about stealing money from billionaires' kids. Obviously a shot at Tony Khan, which I thought was great. And then Cena left at that point. He left the ring. He didn't hop off the apron yet, though. He was still on the apron, had his back turned to Cody, and Cody pipes up again, and he says, never, at any point in all of his career, has the people ever chanted at him, "You can't wrestle." And this got a pretty good reaction from the crowd. Not as huge as some of the other lines from earlier, but this got them riled up, and clearly got Cena riled up, because out of everything that Cody said here, this is the one thing that really fired up Cena. He turned back around, got in the ring. The two went face to face. Looked like they were going to throw down, but of course Cena smirked, went to walk away, but he quickly turned around trying to fake him out, but then Cody caught him and laid him out with a crossroads, and pointed out the WrestleMania sign, held up the title, and looked strong, and got the final word over John Cena on this show. And all I can say is it's about damn time. You know, this is the kind of stuff that I was hoping we would get from John Cena, heel John Cena, and top babyface Cody Rhodes heading into WrestleMania. This is the kind of stuff that we should have been getting for the past few weeks. Honestly, this is stuff that we should have gotten for the last whole month, but obviously Cena's schedule prevented him from appearing on the show earlier than he did. But in a perfect world, John Cena would have been appearing on the show every week, or at least hopping back and forth between Raw and SmackDown, and we would have been getting back and forths like this a little bit more. Maybe some of these big lines that were all kind of crammed into this one segment, maybe they could have been spaced out a little bit over the past couple of weeks. But even still, just isolated on this one show, I thought it was great. I thought it was effective. I thought Cena had some great lines here. I thought Cody, he stood his ground. A lot of people have been very cautious, I guess is the word. They've been very curious of how Cody Rhodes would fare toe-to-toe on the mic with John Cena in a face-to-face confrontation like this. We know Cena can tear down the best of them. We've seen him do it with Roman Reigns. We've seen him do it with The Miz, with AJ Styles, with so many people. Hell, he even did it with The Rock in their feud in the build-up heading into their first match at WrestleMania 28. The Rock, we know how great on the mic he is. Cena tore him down. So we knew Cody was going to have to bring it. And to be fair, Cody Rhodes has proven himself in the past to be pretty good on the stick. So here, he held his own. He let off some good jabs, and he got the fans into him. I mentioned how in the early part of the promo, John Cena, after he was done speaking, he got cheered. The fans were cheering for him. They loved what they were hearing from him. And right as Cody was speaking, the fans were booing. It wasn't even just the fact that it was that good of a promo from John Cena. It was like Cody, they were already predetermining in their minds that Cody is not going to bring it the same way that John Cena just did. So they were already booing him. And Cody immediately got them on his side. It was that Vince McMahon line that really did it. But from there, they were holding on to his every word. And as they went back and forth, they were still firmly behind Cody. Now, who won in this war of words here? I don't know. Cena, John Cena is just on a different level when it comes to this kind of stuff. Not very many in the history of the business can talk the way that Cena does, can be as ruthless and intense as Cena is. But I don't want to discount Cody. I don't want to say, oh, John Cena was just that much better than Cody Rhodes here. It wasn't that. It's just the delivery that Cena has. There's a little bit more intensity and conviction in the way that he delivers some of these lines than what Cody does. And that's just through years and years of Cena being in this position and doing this. Austin Theory, he completely roasted Austin Theory a couple years ago too. I forgot to mention that. That's worth mentioning to further add on to the pile that Austin Theory has been buried under ever since that moment. But I digress. Cody stood tall here, and he held his own, and I thought he did great. And they even let him stand tall in the end by toppling John Cena, hitting the crossroads. But like I mentioned earlier, this is the last announced appearance of John Cena on TV before WrestleMania. WrestleMania is still several weeks away. I would hate to come off of this after the past couple of weeks of not a whole lot from Cena. You know, he did some good stuff against the fans, but like this is the meat of it here. Him and Cody. This is the match for WrestleMania. This is the main event, at least of night 2. But this is what the entire WrestleMania card is built around. So you want to see this kind of back and forth a little more often. But now, as far as we know, Cena's not showing up again until WrestleMania, which will be very unfortunate. Maybe they can pull a surprise appearance. You know, we saw at least 1 or 2 times in the build up to WrestleMania last year where The Rock was not advertised for a show and he randomly showed up, got a big ovation. I think one of those shows is when he beat up Cody Rhodes outside of his bus. Maybe they might follow a similar path here. So on one of these upcoming shows, when they're back in the States, maybe Cena will pop up and he'll lay down a vicious beatdown on on Cody Rhodes, I should say. So one can only hope, but we'll see what happens. This segment was great. It was at the start of the show, and good stuff here from these two. But not the only big noteworthy thing that happened on this show. Another huge highlight was a match between Gunther and Jimmy Uso. Of course, Jimmy is fighting on behalf of his brother Jay. He told Jay to stay in the back, and he wanted to go out there and prove to Jay, who's been all up in his head. Gunther's been in his head in recent weeks. And Jimmy wanted to prove to Jay that Gunther is just a man. He's not some ring general. He's not this or that. He's not this big bad boogeyman or anything like that. He's just a man who can be beaten. And I'm going to beat him tonight, and you're going to beat him at WrestleMania. That was the whole idea. Now, outside of that, in the real world here, the build-up so far between Gunther and Jey Uso heading into WrestleMania has been very underwhelming. Severely underwhelming, in fact. And it's felt like mid-card fodder. And this is the World Heavyweight Championship match for WrestleMania. Jey Uso won the Royal Rumble. Gunther is the World Heavyweight Champion. This, even though we now know for sure this match is not closing any night of WrestleMania. In fact, neither Rumble winner is. But we kind of knew that already. But even still, this feud has been just very dull and slow so far. So they really needed to do something on this show to amp up the intensity, bring out a side of Jey Uso who we want to see go up against Gunther. You know, the yeet stuff is fine and, you know, doing all that stuff. There's a time and place for it, but in order to really buy into Jey Uso going after the World Heavyweight Championship, going after a man who he has lost to 3 straight times now, you got to bring more than that. There's got to be a little bit more fire. And hopefully after what happened on this show, we will get that. The match between Gunther and Jimmy was not much. Jimmy had a few hope spots early on, but after a commercial break, it was basically all Gunther. And he beat down Jimmy Uso pretty badly here. And he had the match won several times, but he did not put him away. He hit him with a powerbomb, pinned him. Referee counts 1, 2. Gunther pulls him up. He hits him with a lariat. Same deal. And then finally, he locks him in the sleeper hold. Jimmy passes out, and that's it. As Gunther goes to leave, he comes back in, reapplies the sleeper hold on Jimmy, and then this brings out Jey Uso, who runs out there. He fights Gunther off, fights him out into the crowd. Gunther runs away, and that's it for now. As they go to commercial, they come back from commercial. Jey is helping Jimmy up. The referees, they're all helping Jimmy walk to the back, and here comes Gunther right back out of nowhere from behind, who just takes out both men. He takes out Jey. He's beating down Jey. Security guards come out. Gunther was about to powerbomb Jey onto some steel steps, but instead he powerbombed one of the security guards onto the steel steps. And then he busts out some zip ties, and he ties up one of Jey's hands to the bottom rope. So now Jey is tied to the ropes, and that leaves Jimmy high and dry to get beat down by Gunther. Gunther throws him into the barricade. He clocks him in the head with the World Heavyweight Championship belt. Meanwhile, Jey is tied up in the rope. He can't break free. He's trying to pull himself off. He can't do it. Gunther has the belt. He's taunting Jey with it. And then Jimmy pulls himself back up into the ring, and we see the bloody face of Jimmy Uso, who got some real good color here in this segment. He looked like a murder victim here, basically. And then Gunther, once again, is beating him down, hits him with a power bomb, locks him in the sleeper again, all while Jey is trying to break loose. He can't do anything to stop it here. Meanwhile, Gunther just completely wrapped around Jimmy here, to the point where Jimmy's blood is all over Gunther's body. And then the image, once a bunch of officials and stuff come in trying to break him off, but he won't let go. Finally, he releases it. And then you see the image of Gunther covered in Jimmy Uso's blood, holding up the World Heavyweight Championship. Meanwhile, Jey is completely enraged because he couldn't do anything to stop it. That was a great image. That was a great visual. And this was a great hot angle that this feud needed. This felt like something worthy of a main event slot, or, a main event caliber feud, a World Heavyweight Championship match heading into WrestleMania. This is the kind of heat that this needed. When they announced Jimmy Uso versus Gunther the previous week, when Jimmy Uso slapped Gunther right in the face the previous week, I was hoping that it would lead to something like this. When they went to that commercial break and that's all that happened in Jimmy Uso, I was a little disappointed, but I was hoping that coming out of the break, that wouldn't be the end of it. And sure enough, we got it immediately, and Gunther puts him down. The blood was a nice touch. I wasn't expecting that. Just giving him a couple power bombs and putting him in the sleeper with Jey handcuffed to the ropes was kind of the vision that I had in my mind. But having the blood there, and then Gunther being covered in Jimmy's blood, and all the officials and everybody running in trying to break him off of him, I thought that was great. So it's not enough to save the feud completely. There's still work to do. We need to see Jey be a little more serious. We need to see him out for blood. Gunther, he's perfect here. He is just perfect as the arrogant, cocky douchebag champion, and he plays that role so well. And he played it well here, and if we see more of that in these next coming weeks, and we see a more intense side of Jey Uso, akin to the version of Jey Uso that we saw in the Bloodline, the right-hand man, sick of Sami Zayn and all that kind of stuff, angry all the time, that version of Jey Uso. Let's bring some of that out, a little bit more of that heading into WrestleMania. And then once he goes to Mania and beats Gunther and wins the World Heavyweight Championship, we can get the celebration, we can get the yeets and do all that stuff. But in the meantime, let's lock in and get a little serious. And I thought this segment was a great push towards that. And then one of the last big noteworthy things on this show took place in the main event, when Io Sky defended the Women's World Championship against Rhea Ripley with Bianca Belair as the special guest referee. The path to this match here and the path to what is obviously a triple threat match for WrestleMania has been very shaky, very weird, and not a whole lot of sense has been made. But this is clearly what we're setting up. This is clearly what we're building towards. And this match was proof of it. The match was fine, but you knew the actual story would kick in once stuff with Bianca started to play out. And it did. Because at one point, Rhea accidentally kicked Bianca, took her out of the equation. She had a riptide on Io, but Bianca was nowhere to be found. That must have been one mighty kick from Rhea that took her out of the equation there. But Bianca does eventually get back in the ring, goes for the cover, only a 2 count. And then as Rhea is beating down on Io in the ropes, Bianca very aggressively pulls Rhea off of Io, and Rhea responds by slapping Bianca in the face. She slapped the referee right in the face for doing this. And then Io goes up top, comes down for a missile drop kick. Rhea moves out of the way, but instead she connects with Bianca, who then slides to the outside, and she's had enough. And she throws the match out and calls it a double disqualification. Therefore, still your champion is Io Sky. And this is where we see Rhea's crash out as she goes out to the ring, outside of the ring, I should say. She beats down Bianca. She beats down Io. There's a whole brawl here, and it ends with Rhea laying out both women with riptides, and then one more for good measure on Bianca as she carries her up and hits her with an avalanche riptide, and that's how the show went off the air. Like I said, this is clearly setting up a triple threat match where I assume now the idea will be, I don't know if both Bianca and Io will want Rhea in the match, but at least Io, who has gone on record on TV saying that she would fight both women, now she's going to push for that even harder here. And probably as soon as next week, we'll get the announcement that this match will be a triple threat. But the setup to this triple threat has just been very, very wonky. But hopefully now we can kind of get it a little, like just make the match and build it up. Like, yes, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense that Bianca, who won the Elimination Chamber, earned her spot, and Rhea, who lost, in my opinion, fair and square to Io. There's no reason that Rhea should be inserted into this match, other than the fact that Rhea is one of the most over women in the entire company, and there's no way you're going to leave her out of a championship match at WrestleMania. That's it. We know it. Just make it official and build up to the match. We don't have to keep worrying about how much it doesn't make sense. I feel like Triple H and the creative team here have gone out of their way to try to make this make sense, but in doing so, they've made it make even less sense. Also, with these crowds, got a bone to pick with these international crowds, constantly booing Bianca Belair, who is one of the only people in this entire story who has done absolutely nothing wrong. She earned her spot at WrestleMania by winning the Chamber. She has every right to be pissed off at Rhea Ripley for trying to insert herself into this title picture. She did nothing to distract Rhea. Rhea did that herself when she lost her championship. All of these things factored in, yet the people constantly, they cheer for Io, they love her. Rhea has done nothing but act like a spoiled brat, a child for the past couple of weeks, but she still gets monstrously cheered. Yet Bianca, who keeps pointing out the obvious, she gets completely booed. To the point now they're going to be back in America in the next couple of weeks, so we'll see what kind of reaction she gets back in the States. But if this booing stuff with Bianca continues, I say go ahead, have her win that championship at WrestleMania and turn her heel, because she would be completely justified. Much like Cena going against the fans, let Bianca just lash out at these fans who have completely wronged her. You know, it's unrealistic, but I say go for it. I say let Bianca win that championship and turn her heel, because if there's anyone in this equation who would be justified to turn heel and have a crash out, it would be her. So those are the big things that took place on this show. We did have a few other things. The New Day, they won a match over Tyler Bate and Pete Dunne, who, I mean, it's cool to see Tyler Bate back, and they're setting up a New Day War Raiders tag team title match, I presume, at WrestleMania. Had another tag match with Penta and Braun Breaker taking on Finn Balor and Dominic Mysterio, where some miscommunication between Penta and Braun led to the Judgment Day getting the win. Finn even pinned Penta in this match, giving Penta his first official pinfall loss in WWE, which is not that big of a deal. This is setting up an Intercontinental Championship match at WrestleMania, which I assume will be a four-way, because later in the show, we saw the Judgment Day all backstage. Finn was happy about how he's been on a roll, and now he wants to go to Adam Pearce and lobby for another championship match. And then after he leaves, Liv is telling Dom how, did you hear Finn? He said that he won when it was you guys who both won, and he wants another title shot, but he failed the first time. So if he's going to go ask for a championship match, you should go ask for one right after him. So still tension and dissension within the Judgment Day ranks. I'm assuming this is definitely going to lead to a four-way match with Finn, Dom, Braun Breaker, and Penta for the IC title at WrestleMania. We also had some mention, well, next week there's going to be a women's Intercontinental Championship match between Lyra Valkyria and Bayley, but we saw some stuff backstage where Liv and Raquel were talking about dealing with them. That could be setting up a women's tag team title match for WrestleMania. And we had a segment with AJ Styles and Logan Paul that led to a challenge being made for a match at WrestleMania, but nothing was made official. Although, by doing that, it's all but official. The segment ended with Logan Paul laying out AJ with his pulverizer. Very clever. But this is obviously setting up a match between the two of them at WrestleMania, which I imagine will be quite good. But that's about it for this show. That's about it for these international shows. You know, the build-up and the excitement and hype levels for WrestleMania still is pretty low on my part and on a lot of people's part. On this show, it was good. It was very good. We had a lot of good segments, but will it be enough to save the build-up? I say it's good on this show. Let's see how things play out this Friday. These SmackDown shows these past couple of weeks have been awful. Although the ending of the previous week's SmackDown with the announcement that CM Punk, Roman Reigns, and Seth Rollins will happen in the main event of Night 1 at WrestleMania this year, and CM Punk saying that that is not the favor that was owed to him and leaving on that cliffhanger was very solid. That was great. I look forward to seeing how that develops and what this actual favor that Paul Heyman owes CM Punk, what the reveal will be, when it will be revealed. I look forward to seeing how that plays out. But the overall hype for WrestleMania has been pretty low so far. So tonight was a good step forward into getting a little more amped up for the show. The crowds have been great. These, whether it's been in Italy or Belgium or London or wherever, these crowds have been awesome. You know, it can be a little distracting with all the singing and stuff sometimes, but for the most part, they've been really great. And they're back in the States this coming Friday. They're going to be in Chicago for SmackDown. They're in Minneapolis next week for Raw. So we'll see as we get closer and closer to WrestleMania if things can start ramping up even more. And I'm hoping for a good show for WrestleMania. But that's about it for me now. If you like what you heard, like what you see, like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Follow me on Twitter /X at DerekJ Speaks. Next time I'll be on this channel will be coming out of this Sunday's AEW Dynasty pay-per-view. I'll have a full review going up sometime early Monday morning in the wee hours of Monday morning, Sunday night, somewhere around that time frame. So please check out for that. If anything big happens over these next couple of weeks on Raw or SmackDown, I might pipe in with some thoughts, but all roads point to WrestleMania. So as we get closer to that, I'll of course have my WrestleMania predictions and then a full review of nights 1 and 2, and we'll get into all that good stuff in the later month of April. But until then, thank you for listening. Take care.